hidden empire, one that thrives in the shadows, completely cut off from the world you know. It's a place where anonymity is sacred, transactions are untraceable, and the currency of choice is unregulated Bitcoin. Now imagine the person ruling this underground empire, a mysterious kingpin, unseen and untouchable, orchestrating illegal deals and earning millions from the secrecy of the internet's darkest corners. This is the story of the hunt for the king of the dark web, a digital manhunt that stretched across continents, defied traditional policing, and revealed just how far the government was willing to go to bring down a faceless mastermind. The king in question went by the name Dread Pirate Roberts. And no, this wasn't a character from a fantasy novel. This was the alias of one of the most infamous figures on the dark web, a man who managed to build and run an empire known as the Silk Road. The Silk Road was an online black market, accessible only through Tor, an anonymous browser that shields users' identities. On Silk Road, you could buy anything: illegal drugs, weapons, counterfeit money, forged IDs, you name it. It was like a virtual supermarket for criminals, a place where the world's outlaws could shop without fear of law enforcement. The Silk Road came online in 2011, created by someone with a profound understanding of both technology and human psychology. It was revolutionary in its setup and deeply encrypted, making it almost impossible for authorities to trace transactions or track down the buyers and sellers. But while it was groundbreaking, the real fascination for law enforcement was in the person running it. Who was this Dread Pirate Roberts? Was he a mastermind, a hacker, or a criminal genius? While many believe the mastermind to be a dangerous and hardened criminal, the truth was more complex. The man behind Dread Pirate Roberts was not a seasoned criminal at all, but rather a young, idealistic coder from Texas named Ross Ulbricht. Ulbricht had a fascination with libertarian ideals. He believed in individual freedom and limited government intervention. His vision for the Silk Road wasn't just a marketplace. He saw it as an experiment, a way to create a community free from government control. But as we'll see, this experiment quickly spiraled out of control. By 2012, the Silk Road had grown exponentially, becoming a hub for illegal transactions, and Ulbricht was making millions in Bitcoin commissions. For law enforcement agencies worldwide, the Silk Road was a nightmare. The very concept was almost science fiction, an invisible market for illegal goods, a place beyond the reach of regular law enforcement methods. Agencies like the FBI and DEA had never dealt with a challenge quite like this, and for a while, they struggled to even understand the dark web, let alone navigate it. The task force formed to investigate the Silk Road was relentless. They were a team of cybercrime specialists, undercover agents, and code breakers who faced obstacles at every step. First, there was the issue of anonymity. The Tor network hid IP addresses, so finding Dread Pirate Roberts was like chasing a ghost. Then there was the issue of Bitcoin. Transactions were untraceable, unlike traditional bank transfers, which meant no paper trail. But law enforcement had one thing on their side: patience. They knew that even the smartest criminals eventually slip up. Their first breakthrough came not from advanced technology, but from human error. In 2013, an IRS investigator discovered a suspicious online post made years earlier on a coding forum. This post promoting the Silk Road was made by a username linked to Ross Ulbricht. It was subtle, and in any other context, it might have been ignored. But for investigators, this was a golden clue. They began watching Ulbricht, piecing together fragments of his online activity to see if he could indeed be the elusive Dread Pirate Roberts. Meanwhile, Ulbricht was aware that law enforcement was likely after him, but he believed his operation was foolproof. He created a culture of secrecy on Silk Road. Each user was required to stay anonymous, and his own identity was hidden behind layers of encryption and false names. Ulbricht even went so far as to change his online identity periodically. The moniker Dread Pirate Roberts was inspired by the character from The Princess Bride, a name passed down through generations, creating an illusion that anyone could be behind it. This gave Silk Road a kind of mythos. No one could know who the real Dread Pirate Roberts was, which made it almost impossible for users to guess his true identity. But while Ulbricht was careful, he was also ambitious. The Silk Road grew beyond his control, with thousands of transactions happening daily and criminals from all over the world participating. And with growth came more risks. Some of his employees and associates didn't share his discipline and often left small but critical trails. And despite the extreme secrecy, law enforcement kept chipping away, hoping for a moment when Ulbricht would finally make a mistake. That moment came in 2013. By now, Ulbricht was living in San Francisco, and he was unaware that the net was closing in on him. The FBI had gathered enough circumstantial evidence to justify surveillance. They followed him closely, waiting for the right time to strike. Finally, the FBI learned that Ulbricht often accessed his laptop in a public library. They knew that if they could catch him with his laptop unlocked, they could access all the encrypted files and admin controls for the Silk Road. And so, in October 2013, FBI agents quietly surrounded the library, moving in when Ulbricht was in the middle of accessing Silk Road. In a carefully coordinated move, they grabbed his laptop before he could close it, gaining access to the platform's backend. The FBI couldn't believe what they saw: files, transaction histories, and proof that Ross Ulbricht, The quiet, unassuming young man was indeed the Kingpin they had been hunting for years. Ulbricht was arrested on the spot, and his laptop provided enough evidence to end the Silk Road for good. But this was only the beginning of his legal battle. The case quickly attracted massive media attention as Ulbricht was charged with multiple counts, including money laundering, computer hacking, and conspiracy to traffic narcotics. His trial was both sensational and controversial, with supporters arguing that he was a political prisoner of sorts, a man punished for challenging the government's control over the internet. His detractors, on the other hand, saw him as nothing more than a high-level drug dealer hiding behind idealism. The trial painted a complex picture of Ulbricht. On one hand, he was a visionary, a man who saw Silk Road as a way to create a new society. But on the other, his platform had facilitated drug trafficking, violence, and other crimes. In 2015, Ross Ulbricht was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, a harsh punishment that sent a clear message. Even in the world of the dark web, no one is truly beyond the law. But the story of the Silk Road doesn't end here. Ulbricht's arrest set off a series of events that would change the face of cybercrime and law enforcement forever. Governments around the world began investing heavily in anti-cybercrime units, developing new tools to monitor and track illegal activities on the dark web. And as for the dark web itself, Ulbricht's downfall only fueled its allure. New black markets popped up in his absence, each one more sophisticated, each one learning from the mistakes that had led to the fall of the Silk Road. The hunt for the king of the dark web was a pivotal moment, not just in Ulbricht's life, but in the history of cybercrime. It showed that no matter how deep you go into the digital underworld, there are still ways to be caught. It also exposed the vulnerabilities of even the most carefully guarded online operations. For law enforcement, it was a hard-earned victory, a testament to persistence and patience. For the rest of the world, it was a peek into a hidden realm, a world where a single person with a computer and a vision could build an empire and challenge the powers that be. The legacy of Ross Ulbricht and the Silk Road is one that continues to haunt the dark web. To this day, people debate whether Ulbricht was a criminal mastermind or simply a misguided idealist who pushed his vision too far. And as the dark web continues to grow, so does the complexity of cybercrime, forcing law enforcement agencies to evolve and adapt to a landscape where identities are masked, transactions are invisible, and power lies in the hands of those who know how to wield it. In the end, the hunt for the king of the dark web was more than just a case. It was a symbol of the internet's double-edged sword. For every innovation, there is potential for exploitation, and for every new layer of security, there is someone determined to break it down. The Silk Road might be gone, but the questions it raised remain as relevant as ever. In a world where technology offers freedom and anonymity, where do we draw the line, and how far are we willing to go to bring justice to those who operate beyond it? Stay tuned, because the hidden realms of the dark web hold countless more secrets, each with stories of individuals who dared to challenge the system and the forces that hunted them down.